this Governance and Audit Committee meeting. I think the first thing is, are there any apologies? I take it that there aren't any apologies.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Alan Roberts has apologised. He's having technical issues.
It shouldn't be up on top on that big brown one. Wait a minute.
Sorry, Margaret. That was Alan Roberts.
Alan Roberts, yes, he's in a queue to get into IT, and I'm afraid he can't come in at all. Sorry.
We'll mark him. Apologies. Thank you.
Quick. Councillor Gwilym Owen Jones as well, Chair, is apologising.
Thank you, Gwilym, as well. Thank you very much. So there's two apologies. With that, there are no minutes from the previous meeting. That's quite normal, is it? Because this is really a. I'm looking for guidance now. That this is really a continuation of the previous one. We were meant to be going through the statement of accounts.
Yes. Sorry, Chair, this meeting is adjourned from the 20th of October, so it's the same agenda.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, thank you. So, so there's nothing to be challenged on that. So I think we can move straight on to the agenda then, which is the to agree the statement of accounts. There's nobody. I did ask if there's any declarations of interest. Sorry. Has anybody got any declarations of interest? I take it with that there isn't. So it's we're now going to lead on the statement of accounts for the 2021 and the ISA 260 report. So I think there are three sections of it: to present the statement of accounts, to present the annual governance statements, and to present the external auditor's report, the financial statements for the 2021. Who is going to lead on this? Is this?
I'll start, Mr. Chairman, and then I'm sure the Wales Audit staff will want to go through their ISA 260 report, but I'll go through my bit on the accounts to begin with, if that's okay.
No, that's terrific. Thank you very much indeed.
Diolch yn fawr. Dyma fo copi I chi fel Pwyllgor Archwilio o'r cyfrifon terfynol da ni yn bwriadu roed ymlaen i'r cyngor llawn I mabwysiadu wsos nesaf. A mae o'n cynnwys wrth gwrs adroddiad yr archwilio'r allanol, a fel da ni wedi trafod yr ISA 260 sef yr adroddiad manwl ar gwaith yr archwilwyr I wneud efo'r cyfrifon. Gai gychwyn wrth gwrs wrth ddeud unwaith eto diolch I staff cyllid, yn enwedig Bethan, Claire, Sian, Gemma a'r cyfrifwyr I gyd sydd wedi ni cael ni i'r pwynt yma I gwaith calad nhw di hwn. Dwi wond yn eistedd yma fel y frontman, nhw sy'n neud y gwaith calad I gyd a dwi wond yn cyflwyno I gwaith nhw I chi heddiw. Hefyd, swn i'n licio diolch I Fon a Gareth o Swyddfa Archwilio Cymru am I gwaith nhw a I parodwydd nhw I weithio efo ni I sicrhau bod y cyfrifon yn gywir ac I ddefnyddio I synwyr cyffredin pe oedden ni'n trafod ambell beth I wneud siŵr bod ni ddim yn canolbwyntio gormod o fanylion dibwys oedd yn creu waith newid I ni a bod nhw ond yn canolbwyntio ar y pethau sylweddol oedd yn effeithio yr cyfrifon. So diolch i'r ddau grŵp yna. Fel mae'r adroddiad, blaen adroddiad efo'r cyfrifon yn nodi, mae yna ambell newid wedi bod i'r cyfrifon yn dilyn yr archwiliad. Dwi'n falch o ddeud, dydyn nhw ddim yn, mae'r rhan fwyaf nhw yn bethau technegol ac bod nhw'n newid y cyfrif incwm a gwariant ar fantolyn ac yn y blaen, dydyn nhw ddim wedi newid yn sylweddol yr ffigwr pwysig I chi fel aelodau, hynny un o'r ffigurau pwysig I chi fel aelodau sef yr balans yr arian wrth gefn, y cyngor a'r cyfrif refeniw tai. Mae yna dipyn bach o wahaniaeth a mae yn cael ei nodi yn yr adroddiadau be ydy'r newidiadau yna, ond dydyn nhw ddim yn sylweddol a dydyn nhw ddim yn ffeithio neu cael effaith ar sefyllfa ariannol y cyngor. Wrth i ni newid yr prif darn o'r cyfrifon, wrth gwrs mae angen newid y nodiadau sydd yn cyd-fynd efo nhw, a wrth i ni drafod efo'r archwilwyr, da ni wedi trio gwella safon rei o'r nodiadau, a mae yna un neu ddau wedi dod allan oherwydd bod yr archwilwyr yn meddwl todd o ddim yn ychwanegu gwerth at yr cyfrifon. Felly, ar hynna, a hefyd, dwi'n meddwl bod o'n werth nodi sef y peth pwysig sydd hefyd yn yr adroddiad ydy adroddiad yr archwilwyr allanol, sy'n dangos eto bod yn cyfrifon ni wedi cael ei paratoi i gyd-fynd efo'r cod ymarfer, a bod nhw'n dangos, be mae'n dweud yn Saesneg, true and fair view, sef y peth pwysig, bod nhw'n adlewyrchu yn yr sefyllfa ariannol y cyngor. Ar hynna, na i drosglwyddo i, dwi'n siŵr pwy o Swyddfa Archwilio Cymru sydd am arwain Derwyn, sydd am gychwyn. Na i drosglwyddo chi Derwyn. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mark. Pnawn da i bawb. Dyma'r tro cyntaf i fod o'r blaen y pwyllgor hwn, os dwi wedi gyflwyno'n hynna'n. Felly, Derwyn Owen dwi'n gyfarwyddwr archwilio yn Swyddfa Archwilio Cymru. Felly, pleser gynnau yma i cyflwyno'r adroddiad ni ar yn echwiliad o'ch cyfrifon blynyddol. A fel oedd Mark yn sôn, braf iawn cael dweud ein bod ni yn bwriadu rhoi barn ddiamod ar eich cyfrifon. Hynny yw, yn ein barn ni, mae'r cyfrifon yn dangos darlun gwir a theg o'ch sefyllfa ariannol chi fel cyngor. Os gai, fe mai trwy'r adroddiad yn fras yn tynnu sylw at un o ddau o bethau, os dy hynny'n yn iawn. Felly dwi'n troi at tudalen 4 o'r adroddiad, neu 172 fi'n credu yn y pecyn. A atgoffa'r pwyllgor yn gyntaf am hynny, na all unrhyw archwilwyr rhoi sicrwydd cyflawn bod cyfrifon wedi ddatgan yn gywir. Lle hynny rydym yn gweithio i lefel o berthnasedd neu materiality. So atgoffa'r pwyllgor o hwnnw, a'r ffigwr am eleni yw 2.6 miliwn o bunnau. Dyn ni wedyn yn sôn am adroddiad am effaith Covid-19 ar yr archwiliad, ac wrth gwrs mae'r pandemig dal yn cael dylanwad ar sut ydym ni'n gweithio, sut mae'r cyngor yn gweithio. A dyn ni wedi sôn am un neu ddau o bethau yn yr adroddiad, yn cynnwys yr amserlen, ac wrth gwrs y dull o archwilio sydd dal yn gweithio ar y ffordd ffrithiol fel ynaw yma. Mae'r adroddiad wedyn yn dod at y brif gasgliadau, ac i gadarnhau y brif gasgliad yw barn ddiamod ar y cyfrifon. Dyn ni wedyn yn sôn am camddatganiadau. Am paragraff 15, dyn ni'n sôn nad oes unrhyw camddatganiadau wedi canfon sydd heb ei gywiro, ac mae hwnnw yn gwneud gwaith yn haws i ni gyd. Dyn ni wedyn yn sôn am camddatganiadau sydd wedi eu cywiro, ac mae atodiad 3 i'r adroddiad yn rhoi fwy o fanylder am rheini. Mae Mark eisoes wedi sôn am ychydig ar rheini, a materion technegol i nhw ar y cyfan, a felly dwi ddim yn mynd mewn i fanylder ar rheini y pnawn yma. Ynglŷn â unrhyw fater arall, am hynny mae yna ddau sylw yn codi. Mae yn deg dweud bod cyfrifon cynghorau ar draws Cymru yn gymhleth, a mae'n gallu fod yn anodd iawn i'w ddarllen. Ac yn ein barn ni, mae gan y cyngor, mae modd i'r cyngor cwtogi peth o'r cyfrifon. Tynnu allan amryw o nodiadau sydd dan y lefel materol. Wrth gwrs, y diwedd y dydd, penderfyniad aelodau, y cyngor a prif weithredwr yw beth i cynnwys yn eu cyfrifon nhw. Ond wrth gwrs, y lleia gyd sy'n cael ei rhoi yn y cyfrifon, y lleia gyd o waith sydd angen yw paratoi y cyfrifon ac i'w archwilio nhw. A felly, dwi'n digon hapus dros y wythnosau misoedd nesaf i cael y trafodaeth hwnnw efo'r cyngor i weld ble allan ni gyrraedd erbyn blwyddyn nesaf. So dyna'r pwynt cyntaf ynglyn â symleiddio'r cyfrifon. Mae'r ail bwynt ynglyn â ansawdd y cyfrifon drafft a'r papurau gwaith sy'n mynd efo'r cyfrifon. Peth cyntaf i weid, does dim pryder sylweddol efo ni. Ond dyn ni'n credu bod modd i wella'r ansawdd drwy'r broses o quality review am hynny cyn ei cyflwyno i'w archwilio. Wedi dweud hynny, dyn ni yn deall bod absenoldeb staff wedi bod yn fater pwysig wrth paratoi'r cyfrifon leni, a felly dyn ni'n deall hynny ac yn cydymdeimlo efo hwnnw. Eto, dyn ni mwy na parod dros y misoedd nesaf i drafod y broses hwnnw a gweithio efo chi i sicrhau y broses hwnnw. Mae'r argymhellion wedyn yn symud ymlaen o'r sylwadau wy'n newydd ei rhoi ar y ddiwedd y droddiad. A felly, dyna hi o'r ddiwetha i, heblaw i weid diolch wrth Mark, Bethan, Claire, a'r tîm cyllid i gyd, am ei holl waith galed ac ei cydweithrediad efo ni, wrth i ni archwilio'r cyfrifon am y tro cyntaf yn Cyngor Môn. A felly, efo hwnnw, na i drosglwyddo nôl i'r cadeirydd.
Thank you very much indeed, Derwyn. I was greatly impressed by the handover from Mark to yourself to do this. There's been obviously a great working relationship. You know, there have been difficult times without any doubt, and I know that we might, you know, we have struggled to finally get it to the end, but we have got there, and I would very grateful for your report then, and it's terrific to see this. You know, the closeness that you have worked with it, and I think it's, you know, that is an outstanding feature of it, because we have, without any doubt, as you say, you know, COVID has made a difference, working arrangements, but have got there, and thank you very much indeed for your contribution, the positive contribution that you've given to that. Thank you very much indeed. Is to Mark, going back to Mark, or to going?
Ie, diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Ie, jyst i ymatab i'r argymhellion yn yr adroddiad ISA 260. Ie, mae'r cyngor a'r adran gyllid yn derbyn yr argymhellion ac yn barod i weithio gyda'r archwiliwr allanol i gweithredu yr argymhellion ac i wella'r proses a'r gwaith papur ac yn y blaen erbyn blwyddyn nesaf. A gobeithio wrth i ni weithio fo'n gilydd, wneud pethau wella. Da ni yn dysgu'r ddwy ochr a gobeithio ar ôl ni fod trwy'r proses unwaith, fydd yr archwiliwr yn dysgu ac yn deall dipyn bach gwell yr ffordd da ni'n gweithio a ni'r un peth efo nhw, a gobeithio fydd ni'n symud ymlaen a wneud y proses dipyn bach mwy haws, neu mwy streamline flwyddyn nesaf, sgai ddeud, ond mae cwblhau y cyfrifon i'r amserlen sydd yn lleihau bob blwyddyn yn anodd. Mae o'n creu pwysau ar y tîm cyllid i gwblhau bethau'n gynt, ac wrth gwrs mae hynna'n meddwl bod yna problemau yn codi sydd yn dod allan yn y broses archwilio wedyn. So, tydi cwblhau pethau ar frys yn sydyn. Dwi'n deall pam mae o'n cael ei awgrymu mwyn i ni symud ymlaen, peidio canolbwyntio gormod ar beth sydd wedi bod, ond yn edrych ymlaen y beth sydd ddod, ond wrth wneud hynna, wrth gwrs, mae o'n creu pwysau a mae yna camgymeriadau yn digwydd sydd yn cael ei godi yn yr archwilio, a hynna di'r problem wrth i ni bwyso i drio cau yn gynt. Ond fel dwi'n dweud, digon hapus i dderbyn yr adroddiad a'r argymhellion sydd yno fo ac i weithredu nhw blwyddyn nesaf. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much, Mark. Can I now turn to the committee? Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask? Clarification? I can't see. I can only. Yeah. I have my vice chairman doing it.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure you'd expect me to make some comment. Turning first to the accounts and the changes that have occurred between the draft and the final. There's a couple of sort of general points. I noticed that in many of the columns of tables that the figures for the previous year, 2019-20, have been changed. Now, what sort of implications do changes to previous year's audited accounts have on the current year? And the other thing I'd like to say as a general comment, that in many of the columns of the tables, the very last digit has been changed by 1. In other words, is this because of a rule change, I'm asking, or whether we're rounding up or rounding down? As far as materiality is concerned, the changes usually involve something like £1,000. And I know our materiality is fixed at 2.6 million. How that came about? I suppose I also have some specific questions, but I'll leave those for the moment. Okay.
Diolch yn fawr, na i gychwyn yr ateb. Dwi'n meddwl bod yr ail un yn haws na'r cyntaf i ateb. Mae yna gymaint o ffigurau yn yr cyfrifon a maen nhw'n lincio gilydd o un nodyn i'r nesa, a mae o'n anodd bob tro i gael y roundings yma i weithio'n iawn, a da chi newid mewn un tabl a mae'n cael effaith anghywir ar dabl arall. So mae yna bob tro broses o penderfynu pa'r un da ni newid neu beidio. Dwi ddim yn ymwybodol, a fydra Bethan neu Fon gywiro fi, o newidiadau yn y ffigurau o flwyddyn dwytha, ond hapus i adael Bethan neu Fon ateb ar y pwynt yna.
O, na rhai o'r ffigurau, dwi'n meddwl ddim yn cyd-fynd efo ffigurau blwyddyn dwytha yn y drafft cyntaf. Dwi'n meddwl dyna oedd rhai o'r newidiadau oedden ni wedi codi yn ystod yr archwiliad.
Ia, cytuno efo be mae Fon newydd ddeud. Pan wnaethon ni trosglwyddo yr spreadsheet o un blwyddyn i'r llall, oedden nhw wedi dod trwodd yn gyflawn yn gywir.
Felly cywiro nhw i be oedd nhw, gath i gyhoeddi yn yr cyfrifon terfynol 19-20 oedd y newidiadau. So mae cyfrifon terfynol yma yn cyd-fynd efo'r cyfrifon terfynol llynedd, ia?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Did you? I've got one more hand up. Dylan, did you have another? Did you want to continue?
I'll wait for other questions
All right.
And finish up if we have time. Thank you.
All right. Dylan Rees, I think that's the only other hand I can see at the moment. Dylan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm just looking at the section in the accounts that relates to transactions with related parties. And I'm looking at page 65 of the Statement of Accounts and looking at the transactions involving Betsy Cadwallader Local Health Board. And I note that it says that at the year end, £0.458 million was owed by ourselves to the BCUHB, but that they owed us £1.354 million. So if my maths is correct, roughly they owe us about £800,000 more than we owe them. I'm just wondering, is there any problems or difficulties in the health board paying the monies that they owe us? Does it take undue time for us to get the money that they owe us, or is it a fairly seamless, smooth transaction? Diolch.
Of course, the accounts show the position at a point in time, 31st of March, so by the 1st of April it may have changed, so that's the first point I'd like to make. I think there's always been difficulties, not just for Anglesey Council, but for other councils in agreeing what Betsy Cadwaladr University Health Board contributes to some care costs. This was a particular issue. I know when I started in this job 4, 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was, that there was a significant number of debts, historical debts with Betsy Cadwaladr. A lot of those have been cleared. An agreement has been reached whether they were payable or not. Our processes have improved to make sure that when we enter into an agreement with Betsy Cadwaladr, that there's documentary evidence to cover that, to make sure that Betsy Cadwaladr staff can't then turn around and say, we never agreed to that. So our processes are much improved. And I think the position with Betsy Cadwaladr is significantly better than it was, not just for us, but I think all the 6 authorities in North Wales would say there's a better relationship with Betsy Cadwaladr, and they're more open to have a conversation around debts, and their finance director regularly asks for updates where they are in terms of paying their bills, and then they will be followed up by the finance director if we think that there are issues. But over the last year or so, I haven't had any real issues, and I haven't been made aware of any real issues with the debts concerning Betsy Cadwaladr. They do pay now, and like I say, the figure is just at a point in time, and if we looked at it again a month later, it may be totally different.
Diolch, Mark. I was aware that there had been difficulties historically, which is one of the reasons I asked the question, but I'm reassured by your answer. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Dilwyn, I don't have another hand up at the moment. Would you like to continue?
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 or 3 little specific questions. On note 14, where Mark has highlighted the change of 2.14 million on the taxation value of non-domestic rates. In that table, it's actually on page 45 of the pack, other figures have been changed as well, and they show, if you add them, that the net change is something like £68,000 from the draft. So there are offsetting changes to other income which compensate for the redistribution of the non-domestic rates. And I find that table now rather confusing, because originally it was showing 171,405 in the draft, and it's only moved by 68,000, whereas Mark has concentrated purely on the difference in the non-domestic rates of 2.14 million. That's one question.
The difference on the non-domestic rates was the split and how Welsh Government funded their overall contribution to us, the aggregate external finances it's called, which is made up of the RSG and the redistribution of N&DR. They initially gave us how they were funding it when the settlement was issued, and then as things moved on with COVID, of course, their funds that they had from the non-domestic rates pool changed and decreased, which meant they had to recalculate how much they were putting in themselves through the RSG. So that's the main change. I assume that there are other small changes that have been identified during the audit, which affects either the capital grants or the council tax income. But again, I'll pass on to Bethan or Yvonne to clarify that point.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Who's going to jump in?
Sorry, I don't have the because the 68,000 is below trivial level. I don't have that detail to hand at the moment. But the main change we document was the splits between the NDR and the RSG changing by the 2.14 million. That was the main change between the notes.
I'm just trying to go through the files. You just bear with me.
My button, I think it's about treatment of a Welsh Government grant relating to NDR of 68k. That's why it's moved from the draft to the final.
Thank you.
I think if I can come in as well, I think the what we've done in our report in Appendix 3 is laid out all the main movements in the between draft and final. If you look right at the very bottom of the report, we have got that catch-all comment about, you know, there are a number of other less significant changes and which have been made to the draft, and I guess that's what has been picked up in that question. There is a £68,000 adjustment which hasn't been listed out separately, and of course has quite likely caused confusion then as to the draft and the final changes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Chair. May I just mention on in note 28 and 29, I know that the intention has been to simplify the reporting, but I find that table 28 and note 28 and note 29, there's a duplication there, because although note 28 is headed cash flow from operating activities, it does include an adjustment for items at the bottom which are to do with investing and financing. And then you've got the reverse of those in the table attached to note 29. So some of the figures appear twice, obviously reversed in one table compared with the other. But I find that adds confusion rather than clarity.
I wouldn't disagree with your comments on the cash flow statement. It's something I raised when I looked at it during the summer, and if I was doing the cash flow statement, it wouldn't look like that, but that's how it has been historically. So for this year's accounts, we carried on with the format as it is, but it's one of these areas that we want to look at and try and simplify and make a little bit clearer. But I agree totally, it doesn't make much sense to include something in one table and then reverse it back out in the next. It isn't the best note. I will accept that, and we will look at it for next year.
Thank you. And Chair, one specific point in table, I'm looking page 68, the top, revenue grants received and refer to the North East Wales Ambition Board. It's not the North East Wales as far as I know. I think it's North Wales.
Yes, it's the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. It's NWEAB, it should be, yeah.
That should be struck out, the East.
Yeah, we'll correct that before it goes to the council.
Thank you. And just as a general conclusion, Chairman, I was wondering, in view of the content of the audit report from Audit Wales, whether there couldn't be some benefit for members if we were to meet Wales audit at a separate meeting. There are various things that are mentioned in the audit report that, you know, words like streamlining. I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know, for instance, why things have changed this year from last year. Is it because Deloitte's were not given proper instructions to how to interpret the various IFRS and SIPFR codes? I find that if there were a meeting with the Wales audit, there'd be some clarification for us. That's just a suggestion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't know, would anybody like to comment on that? Would Derwin like to comment at all whether, with regard to the Vice Chairman's question about whether a meeting with the audit would help to clarify some of these points?
Yes, certainly. If members wish to have a further conversation with Audit Wales, we're very happy to engage in that conversation. I think the streamlining concept comes from the public sector professional body of SIPA, who have probably for a few years now recognised that council accounts have become very lengthy and very complicated, and have encouraged councils to look at the quantity of notes they include in their statements, and to consider whether they are actually, some of them are actually adding value. Now, clearly it's a local decision from members and officers as to what to include, or some of what to include. And I think we're very happy to engage in that conversation in the coming weeks and months. And maybe once that conversation is advanced between Audit Wales and the council, that might be a useful point to re-engage with this committee, so you're satisfied as to what, if anything, is being removed in terms of, or proposed to be moved in terms of next year's accounts. But that's what that streamlining concept's about, is about trying to remove, if I can use the words, some of the clutter within accounts across England and Wales. This is not just a Anglesey issue, this is across England and Wales. In terms of Deloitte and us, it's the same basis upon which we conduct an audit. Both Deloitte, us, Pricewaterhouse, KPMG, and any other professional audit firm audit in accordance with international standards of auditing. That's the way we do it. Now, I guess there's always scope for professional bodies to have slightly different interpretations of slightly different things. But on the whole, all external auditors are required to conduct their audit in accordance with the same international standards, and that is what we've done. And based on my understanding of prior year audits and Deloitte's, that's what they've also done as well. But fundamentally, Chair, very happy to further engage with members individually or as a collective.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything to add to that, Mark?
Well, yeah, just on 2 points. Firstly, anything we can do to reduce the volume of accounts and make them clearer to the reader, because they are accounts for the taxpayers. And I think I've told this committee more than once that I think that local government accounts have become so cumbersome and complicated that they don't mean anything to anybody. And it's a shame that we've lost that somewhere along the line over the years. And a document that's over 150 pages long with a number of technical terms in it that don't mean anything to the man in the street, it provides no real value. On the point of streamlining, I agree with what Derwin said there about streamlining the accounts, but it's also streamlining our processes internally and trying to get more information directly from our main accounting system without having to transfer data to a spreadsheet and then having to manipulate that information in a way that provides the working papers. So if we can get more of the working papers come directly from the main accounting system, it's a lot easier for us, and of course it's a lot easier for the auditors to follow. So streamlining is two things to me. It's streamlining the accounts and streamlining our processes as well to make the audit process a lot easier if we can.
Thank you very much, Mark. I've got one further hand up at this stage. I think that is Dylan Rees.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome Dylan suggesting that perhaps we have sort of further engagement with Audit Wales, but I would suggest that we postpone it for the time being, because obviously the composition of sort of audit and governance committees will change considerably after next May's elections, which is only 6 months away. And perhaps, following next May, then perhaps Audit Wales could look at perhaps providing some virtual training workshops, not for all individual 22 authorities, but perhaps on a regional basis, because obviously there will be new members who will have quite a sort of a a steep learning curve, and that might well sort of assist the process.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I was going to suggest that to Dilwyn, that we did leave it until the next composition, as you quite rightly say, after the elections. But not only that, is the introduction of 2 or 3 further members, independent members who will come in like Dilwyn, and so the actual the committee will be changed quite a little bit with having more outside influence on it. And I will certainly speak to Dilwyn about that. Is that we arrange that, as you quite rightly say, after the elections when we reconvene this committee. Thank you very much. You happy with that, Dilwyn?
Yes, Chair. The only thing I'd add is that Dylan's suggestion of some training in the when the new composition of the committees has been has settled down is very welcome. I still think that there is something to be gained, that once the team, the accounts team and Wales Audit have had their discussions about streamlining, etc., that a meeting with Wales Audit would be useful for this committee. But that can be next, probably will be after next May. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other points that anybody wants us to raise? I am flicking through, but I can't see any other hands coming up. No, I don't think there is. I think, Mark, that really brings it to an end this afternoon, and it's just really a case of thanking you all for coming and the contribution. I think that I thought the introduction, your introduction, Mark, and both Dylan, Derwin as well. This relationship that you seem to be building is a very confident booster, and I'd like to thank you all for that. And quite rightly, I think that Mark, if you could also pass on our thanks to all the staff. Bethan and Claire, you've mentioned, but I'm sure to all the staff, for getting us to here. There's been a lot of work going on. I know we have taken a little bit extra time, but we have got it there, and we've now finally approved this to go to the full council. So thank you very much indeed for all the team's effort into get it here. And I'd just like to thank you all, for coming again this morning and agreeing on these, so we can move forward. The other thing that
Chairman, sorry to cut across, but I think we need a formal vote just to accept the accounts, please. I was
going to come back next week again. I think you're quite right. I think you're quite right. Yes, we do need a formal vote. So I need to go round you all now to accept these accounts. Can I? We'll start off. So I'm looking now for the vote. I take it. So we'll start with John Griffiths.
Yes, I agree that we forward on the accounts to the full council.
Dylan?
Yeah, Devon, accept.
Margaret?
Derbyn, Mr. Cadeirydd.
Thank you. Jeff Evans? Jeff Evans? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I mean, no, yes, I agree. Anyway.
And then Dylan?
Yes, I agree, Chair, but are we also including the annual governance statement? Because we've not mentioned that, even though we've been through it in June.
Yeah, are you asking if we to look at that now, or are you accepting?
No, I'm suggesting, Chair, that is part of the package.
What we're voting on.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And I agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. So I think that that satisfies that everybody, or the whole committee, is in agreement. Yeah.
Mr. Cadeirydd, Cynghorydd eisiau graffius yma.
Sorry, I've put the line through Gwilym, through Gwilym's name and Richard Griffiths, but I haven't seen you there. Very sorry.
Mae'n iawn. Hapus i dderbyn, Secretary Erin. Diolch.
Yeah. It's been a very long meeting, you have to understand that. Thank you. So I'll bring that to a close then.